heavy wooden door, and we can see there is a man kneeling and he's praying. It's the Apostle Paul, the one who used to be named Saul of Tarsus. He's on his knees praying for the Christ followers. Just a little few years before that, Paul was persecuting the church. He was basically arresting these Christians and tormenting them, and even some of them were put to death. And now he's on his knees praying that Christ may come to dwell in their hearts by faith. There's no greater prayer a pastor can pray for his people than that prayer, that Christ may come to dwell in your heart through faith. There's no greater prayer that you could pray for anybody than that Christ may come to dwell in their heart by faith. Because you see, the heart is the throne room of the soul. It was built for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And without His presence in the human heart, it is cold and dark and dilapidated, like a run-down, forgotten mansion somewhere on a southern hilltop. Jesus can come to dwell in your heart. I mean literally. I'm talking about He can live in your heart. Now, let me ask you a question this morning. Where is Christ to you? Is He up there on one of these fluffy clouds somewhere? Is He on another planet? Is he in the church steeple? Or is he inside the black bindings of this book we call the Bible? Or is He literally in your heart? I mean, He can live in your heart. He says in Revelation 3:20, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and will open the door, I will come in to him, and I will sup with him. I will eat with him and live with him." And I know that is true. I know it's true because one day Jesus knocked on the door of my heart. And when I finally let Him in, He took a journey through the rooms of my heart. And I want to share that with you this morning. First of all, Jesus walked right up and knocked on the front door. The front door of the living room of my heart. He didn't go around to the back door like a tricky salesman. He didn't try to climb in a side window like a burglar. He just walked right up and knocked on the door of my heart. And I wanted to let Him in, but it was difficult. I had trouble getting that door open. And I struggled. I really did. I knew I wanted to let Him in, but for some reason that door just didn't want to open. Now, I finally got it open just enough for Jesus to step inside, and when He did, He said, "This door doesn't work right." And He looked, and I looked, and the hinges of the door of my heart were rusty. And then Jesus took one of His fingers and He touched those rusty hinges, and all of that rust fell away like little brown snowflakes, and the hinges became bright and shiny. And Jesus opened up the door of my heart, and He said, "Now it works like I made it to work." And it does. I can open my heart wide now, and I can take people into my heart where I used to couldn't do that. So when He stepped inside and got the door open, all of a sudden I noticed that it was dark in my heart. It was very dark in there. And Jesus noticed that darkness, and He said, "Hey, it's dark in here. How do you see?" And I said, "Well, Lord, I don't know. I just never have thought about it very much." You see, I didn't know how much in the darkness I was until some real light came into my heart. So that was like we used to be out in the country before we got electricity. Now, I know y'all think I couldn't possibly be old enough to remember that. But I just want to tell you, we live way, way back. We lived so far back in the country that we didn't get the Grand Ole Opry till Monday morning. We had hoot owls for chickens, and we lived so far back in the country, we were totally out of touch with everybody. We didn't get electricity in the country until I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I remember when they turned the lights on in that old house. See, I didn't know how much in the dark we were when we were roaming around and trying to study by the light of a kerosene lamp until we turned on the lights. I stared at that light bulb so long until every time I closed my eyes, I saw blue spots. But see, that's the way it is in the human heart. And here's the tragedy. The tragedy is that so many people are living in the darkness, and they don't know what it's like to have the light of God, the light of Jesus Christ in their hearts. And the tragedy is we just get used to the darkness. And Jesus said that in John chapter 3, verse 19. he said after he gave us that beautiful John 3:16, that God loved us so much that he sent his son, he said this. He said, this is the judgment, or this is the crisis, that light has come into the world, but men love the darkness rather than the light because their deeds were evil. And see, that's the way it is in our world. That's the tragedy of a lost world. People who are lost don't understand what it is until they see the light of God. And then Jesus did a wonderful thing. He did an amazing thing. Standing in the dark in the living room of my heart, he took my face in his hands like this. And he said, look at me. And I looked into his face, my eyes caught his eyes, and I want to tell you, my heart was flooded with light. And then I knew what that poet meant when he said, "O soul, are you weary and troubled? No light in the darkness you see? There's light in a look at the Savior, and grace more abundant and free. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace." And that's why I pray to God today that Jesus Christ may come to dwell in the living room of your heart, that he may turn on the lights so you can see the darkness flee. But once he got the light on in there, that living room was all cluttered up, and I was ashamed of it. Now let me tell you, when I talk about the living room of the heart, I'm talking about the mind of a human being, the mind. And it was all cluttered up. When the living room of the heart is all cluttered up, it is seen in wrong thoughts and wrong attitudes that lead to wrong actions. So when he turned on the lights, I could see. I had pictures hanging all over the place. There were pictures of lust and immorality and indecent kind of things. And Jesus looked at me and he said, "You know, these pictures don't show very good taste." And I said, "Well, that's right, Lord." And then I caught him looking at a picture of Jesus. See, even before I knew him, I had a picture of Jesus in my mind. But I was about to put my thumbs under my suspenders and feel kind of proud of myself because I had a picture of Jesus in my living room. But I stopped because when I looked at him and I looked at that picture, my picture of Jesus Christ was nothing like the real Jesus. You see, my picture of Christ was a weak, hollow-chested, anemic, sad-looking little guy. And the Jesus that I came to know was strong and handsome and real. He was a real man. And I said, "Yeah, Lord, I've got a picture of you, but it doesn't look like you very much." And he just smiled. And we took that picture down. Now, I had some other pictures hanging there. I had a picture of a Christian. See, before I met Jesus, I thought a Christian woman was a little old lady, excuse me, ladies, a little old lady who had her hair combed straight back and wrapped up in a tight bun right on the top of her head, and she wore black plastic rimmed glasses right down on the end of her long nose that she went around poking into everybody's business. And I had a picture of a Christian man. He was her husband. He was a henpecked jellyfish named Henry. And Jesus said, "No, you got it all wrong. A Christian, a Christ follower, is just somebody that I've touched. I've changed their lives, and they follow me, and they love me." I had a picture of the church. See, I thought the church was a red brick building with 4 Greek columns in front of it, and it had mahogany pews with white ends and red satin or soft type cushions on the seat. Had an organ and a piano. And Jesus said, "You know, that's really not the church. My church is not about bricks and mortar and stained glass windows. My church is the people." And I had a picture, a wrong picture of the church inside of that living room. Well, I had some other pictures there. None of them were any good. But the Lord said, "I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean these out. I'm going to give you a real picture of myself." And now I have a real picture of Jesus on the wall of the living room of my heart. And I never get tired of looking at him. And I never will. But when we got through with the wall, I looked down to the floor and it was just a mess. Bad language was scattered here and there, and terrible thoughts, dirty thoughts. were scattered here and there. And Jesus handed me a broom. And he said, this floor could sure use a cleaning. And I took that broom and I began to sweep, and I want to tell you, it was a joy to sweep out all those dirty jokes and those bad words and those smutty little things that I had littering up the mind or the heart, the living room of the heart. Well, after we cleaned up the floor, Jesus said, have you got any more rooms? And let me tell you this before I move on to the next room. When Jesus enters the living room of a man's heart, he straightens that man out in his thinking. Immorality has roots in the mind, and bad actions always start with bad thoughts. And so Jesus cleans it out and he straightens it up when he comes to live. Before I knew it, we were in the